As meat prices are steadily on the rise, it has become increasingly difficult to get that super premium cut of meat. But don't worry, because in today's video, I'm going to show you how to find, extract, and cook a secret little steak that will allow you to eat like a king for only $1. Welcome to the Two Guys and a Cooler channel, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Eric, and I am truly excited that you could join us for this episode because, let's be honest, anytime I get to share a way for you to save a boatload of money and eat like a king, well, I consider that a great day. Today we're going to be talking about a lesser-known steak that is incredibly delicious and very affordable. The name of the steak is called a Coppa steak. I'm going to show you how to identify it, how to butcher it, and most importantly, I'm going to show you how to cook it properly so that you can have mouth-watering steaks for not only yourself, but everyone in your family for under $1 a piece. Let's get into it.
The Coppa steak comes from a part of the pig known as the pork shoulder, aka Boston butt. This is the cut of meat that's used to make delicious pulled pork. And what I'm going to show you right here is a very easy way to identify the Coppa steak. So what we have right here is the spinal column. This is a bone-in pork shoulder. We've got 1, 2, 3 ribs. And anatomically speaking, what we've got is the head up here at the top. We've got the body here at the bottom. This section is the top of the pig, and this section is where the leg goes. And you could tell because my butcher cut it right below the shoulder joint. And so that's that part right there. All right, so now that we have the direction figured out of our pig, we need to remove that spinal column and separate our pork shoulder into 2 pieces. The part that we separate that's closest to where the leg goes, that could be used to make sausage, pulled pork, whatever you want. The part that's closest to the top of the pig or the back of the pig, that's what we're after. That strip of muscle right there is known as the neck muscle, and that's where we're going to get our Coppa steaks. Another way to identify that you're in the right area is this little muscle right here. This is called the money muscle, and it's part of a series of muscles that make up the Coppa. Notice you have a little muscle segment with perpendicular lines met with horizontal lines. So it's the only muscle group that looks like that on the Coppa. And when you find that, you'll know you're in the right area. All right, so let's go ahead and remove the neck muscle. I'm going to be using a Taiwanese butchering knife. This is known as the G3 Mini. I'll put a link in the description box below if you want information. This knife is seriously like a scalpel. All right, so let's get started. To remove the bones, I like to start where the ribs are, and just with my knife, as close as I can to the bones, I just follow the natural direction of the bone. You'll notice that as you cut the meat away from the bone, that bone structure will just peel away, and before you know it, you'll be holding the spinal column in your hand, and that's what that's going to look like. This is great for stocks, for soups. You can cook this down and make an amazing pork broth. We're going to set that to the side and use it later. All right, now that that's out of the way, let me show you where to cut this so that we could separate our roast into 2 pieces. You'll notice 2 very visible seams on the top. You've got one right here that's close to the back of the pig, and you've got another one that's close to the leg of the pig. We want to cut the one that's closest to the leg. And just so you know, technically, you can cut at either seam, but if you cut at the seam that's closest to the leg, you're going to end up with a bigger steak, and it's going to be amazing. Now, one thing you will run into if you cut at that seam is the shoulder blade, and that's what I'm looking at right here. So just very carefully with that knife, I'm running that knife along the edge of that shoulder blade, and then I'm just going to cut all the way down. And there we have it. This piece right here, I'm just going to turn that into sausage, but you could easily cook this low and slow in your oven or on a barbecue pit and turn it into amazing pulled pork. Or you can toss it into a soup or a stew because this particular cut benefits from relatively long cooks. The meat gets really nice, really juicy, really tender. All right, so that goes to the side. Let's take a look at our neck muscle. This is known as the Copal Loin, and this is where we're going to cut our steaks out of. Now, it's perfect the way that it is, but if you don't particularly want a lot of fat on your steaks, you can always trim some of that back fat off, but don't throw it away. This is great fat for sausages. Just save it in your freezer. The next time you make sausages, throw this into your sausage meat, grind it up. You're going to have great sausages. We've cut some of the back fat off, and it's now time to cut our steaks. And check out the size of what these steaks are going to be. Now, I'm going to use my thumb as a guide and cut, roughly 2-inch steaks. But you got to remember, if you can catch this cut on sale, the Boston butt, for 99 cents a pound, and you cut 1-inch steaks off of this roast, you're going to end up with steaks that are between 12 ounces and 16 ounces a piece. So at 99 cents a pound, each one of your steaks are going to cost between 75 cents and 99 cents. All right, so just to give you some idea, my steaks ended up weighing about 20 ounces a piece. And at 99 cents a pound that I got this meat on sale for, that puts the cost of each one of these steaks at $1.25. Now, if you wanted to be super technical, you would say, what about the bones? And because we use the bones in a completely different dish, I didn't calculate that as weight loss. But the price was negligible, so it really didn't matter all that much. Okay, it's time to season our meat, and you can literally add whatever you want. We're going to go simple with garlic, pepper, and salt. And we're going to do 1 part salt, half a part pepper, and 1/4 part garlic. I'm going to give that a little mix, and then we're going to go ahead and season our meat generously with this spice combination. What we want to do here is basically create a dry brine. So we're going to be seasoning our meat, and then we're going to let it refrigerate for a day or 2 days. And that's going to really allow that spice mix to penetrate the meat. We want our meat to be seasoned from the inside out. Not only is that going to give us a boatload of flavor, but it's also going to make our Coppa steaks incredibly juicy. So we just want to make sure we generously apply that spice mix on the top, bottom, and all the sides. And then we're going to vacuum seal them and place them into our refrigerator. All right, our Coppa steaks are seasoned, they're in a vacuum seal bag, and it's now time to refrigerate them. So if you don't have very thick steaks, you can leave them in the refrigerator overnight, and that's sufficient. Mine are relatively large, 2 inches thick, so I'm going to leave them in there for 24 to 48 hours, and now it's time to cook. These particular steaks benefit from low and slow, so we're going to be using an immersion circulator by Kitchen Boss to cook these steaks sous vide. Time and temperature are incredibly important when it comes to sous vide cooking, and we're going to go ahead and find the pork preset, which is this one. It says 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to go ahead and lower that to 135 degrees. Now, that's how we're going to cook our steaks, but we're not going to cook them for an hour. We're going to cook these steaks for 12 hours. Now, I realize that not everyone is comfortable eating pork at a medium rare, but I can assure you that if you use the sous vide method, your pork is not only going to be exceedingly tender and juicy, it's going to be completely pasteurized and safe to eat. Now, with that being said, if you prefer a more well-done steak, you could still cook these for 12 hours, but just increase the temperature to 150 or even 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
All right, now that our steaks are doing their thing, let's talk for a second about sous vide. And if you're not familiar with sous vide, let me explain. Sous vide is a French phrase that means under vacuum. And sous vide cooking refers to a style of cooking in which food is placed under vacuum and then placed inside of a temperature-controlled water bath. And there it cooks. You see, water is a lot more efficient at transferring heat than air. And how do I know that? Well, if you've ever stuck your arm inside of a preheated oven that's been preheated to, let's say, something pretty low, 150 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to feel pretty warm, but it's not going to burn you. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you've ever accidentally dipped your arm in water that was preheated to 150 degrees, it'll burn you almost instantly. Now, the temperatures are the same, but the water is a lot more efficient at transferring that heat. And that's where sous vide cooking really shines. I mean, sous vide cooking really brings a whole new definition to the phrase low and slow.
Because the temperature is so precisely controlled with sous vide cooking, we're able to cook our food at a much lower temperature for a lot longer. This is going to give us the benefit of moisture retention, texture, and of course, pasteurization. The end result is a product that's cooked to the exact temperature that you want it to be cooked at, maintaining the maximum amount of juiciness and flavor. And because Through the process of sous vide cooking, it gets pasteurized, it's completely safe to eat, and it's the reason we're able to cook our Coppa steaks, which are almost 2 inches thick, to a perfect 135 degrees Fahrenheit.
There you go. Let's go ahead and check on our Coppa steaks. They gotta be ready by now, right?
It's been 12 hours, and it's time to get into these steaks, and I can't wait. Now, because of the thickness of these steaks and the cut of meat that we're using, I mean, if you want to let them go another 12 hours, that is completely okay. They're just going to get even more tender. And that's one of the great benefits of sous vide cooking. You can customize the way you cook sous vide based off of your own personal preference. And don't get me wrong, it does take a little bit of experimenting to get it right. But once you get it right, it is absolutely a beautiful thing. So let's go ahead and put them on a drying rack, cut the strings, and our steaks have held up nicely. I do want to blot these completely dry with a paper towel. I don't want them to be wet whatsoever because our next step is all about the reverse sear. We want that Maillard reaction. We want to develop an absolutely gorgeous crust. And look at this steak. I mean, this is beautiful. When I give it just a little squeeze, I could tell you that this is cooked to a perfect medium rare, and really, that's the beauty of sous vide cooking. Last thing we need to do before we sear these steaks is get a little oil on them. I want to make sure that I cover the top, the bottom, and all the sides before we put them on a blazing hot cast iron skillet.
Our Coppa steak is done, cooked to a perfect 135 degrees, medium rare. I mean, it looks and smells amazing, so let's just give it a taste. Wow, that is delicious. I mean, for this being such a cheap cut of meat, it tastes remarkable. I mean, it tastes like $1,000,000. It's flavorful, tender, and juicy. Simply seasoned, you know, salt, garlic, pepper, and that crust that we put on it gives it this almost elevated beefy flavor. I mean, absolutely delicious. You know we're going to come back with some of these onion rings, so let's see how these onion rings taste. Wow, that is some seriously crispy onion rings. And if you'd like to know how to make these amazing, super easy, crispy onion rings, check out the description box below. I got the recipe from Chef Jean-Pierre. I'm going to post a link to his video. Be sure to check out his channel. Tell him Two Guys in a Cooler sent you. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. So that's all I got for you today, folks. I hope you get a chance
to make these Coppa steaks, because at 99 cents a pound when the Boston butt is on sale, this steak is unbelievable. Is it better than the ribeye? I'll let you decide.
If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment, share, and as always, if you like this video or got anything out of it, a thumbs up is always appreciated. I appreciate you being here. See you next week. Bye-bye.